Welcome back to another episode of 1980s Now, a weekly examination of 1980s pop culture and its continued influence today. Hey, my name's Will, and joining me as always are my friends and co-hosts, Kat and John. Hello!
Hello!
Hello, hello, hello. Back again.
Yeah, I think this is what you were looking for, John.
That's the one. The universal sound of Kat raising the curtains.
Hey, on today's show, we're just going to get right to it here. On today's show, I want to tell you guys.
Let's do it.
I thought I was just going to tell you about, we're just going to talk about another one of the films from 1984. This one is sort of an oddity in a year that's otherwise filled with so many amazing, trend-setting blockbusters. I'm talking about Best Defense, which is sort of the inverse of that. Well, in examining, Best Defense to talk about it, and there's not a whole lot known about sort of how we came to have Best Defense, but I realized that what I also want to talk about is just sort of the journey to get to Best Defense by following the screenwriters and directors, who's a husband and wife team named Willard Hike and Gloria Katz. So we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But before that, we're going to talk about current news stories related to 1980s media, including Caligula is coming back to theaters. See, now, Kat, we talked about this a few, a month or so ago when we talked about the heist that led to the most expensive gay porn ever made.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
At the time you mentioned, you didn't even know what Caligula was. Now you have a chance to see it in the theater.
Mm-hmm. Is it good for the hair? So that's my quote from Caligula that you'll figure out later when you watch it.
Oh, wow. At least he was touching his head, though, Kat, right? So we get a clue.
I was. Is it good for the hair?
It's more of the PG variety of things.
You're making a great assumption that I'm going to see this.
Also, we're going to talk about a new Robert Zemeckis movie that's coming that's ultimately based on a 1989 comic strip. And also, we're going to chat about another AI lawsuit. You know how much I just hate AI.
You love to hate it. That's how much you hate it.
I just hate to. I hate to hate it. I just hate it. And finally, we're going to also talk about how music lyrics have gotten worse since the 1980s. And we could probably just leave it at that. And that.
Thanks for being here, everyone.
Right? But in fact, I'm going to give you statistics.
To prove our assertion.
Is there a spreadsheet involved?
Now I realize there was one more thing I wanted to share with you guys.
Ooh.
Let me see something.
I like sharing.
Yeah.
Is it show and tell? Is it a game? Is it time to play? What is it?
Once again, it's time to play.
Bling.
I gotta see if I can't have somebody bring this to me.
Someone looks around.
My SSD drive is upstairs where I was working. If you could bring that to me, that'd be appreciated. And I'll see if I can just talk really
So you just
slowly.
Is this like manifest? You speak it into the universe and hope that it will.
Yes.
That it will come to you because you put it out there.
I have all that. The universe provides all that I need for the podcast.
Hola, Salima.
The universe. This is not all that different than a mantra that I do, for the podcast. Oh, universe, please. Oh, look at that. See what I'm talking about?
Whoa.
Wow. That's amazing.
Oh, crap. I ran out of slots to put it in.
That's what she said.
Oh, damn it. I'm not going to be able to show you this.
Oh.
I'm not going to be able to show you this after all.
Poor Will. All his slots are filled.
Think of this. Oh, you know what I could do here? Let me do this. This is a great show. You guys just talk amongst yourselves here for a
I
minute.
can tell. Yeah.
You're letting us talk amongst
I was so
ourselves.
proud that I was so prepared for the show today. I had a schedule, and now look at this.
I'm not prepared for this. This section where we're supposed to talk amongst ourselves.
No,
guess
we
we'll
can
just-
always talk about truck driving at any time you'd like.
Exactly
Oh,
what
squeaks.
I was about to say.
Kat, I'm not prepared to talk about this part of the show, which I'm not prepared to talk about. I guess that's content, just talking about whatever
Yeah.
comes into your head.
That's
I can
Seinfeld, basically, right?
Yeah,
Just random
Show
discussion.
nothing.
We can talk about how Fall Guy is getting better at the box office,
There you
and
go. Let's do
people
that,
are
yeah.
wondering why in the heck, like it gained so much more traction after in the theater after it went to streaming, and they're
Right.
like, well, why did you send it to streaming so fast? Look at all the money it's making, and you could have, how much more would it have made had it not been on streaming?
Exactly.
So after they called it dead prematurely, and they were about to embalm it, and they're like, oh wait, I'm still breathing.
Yeah, so what accounts for that? You think that in part on streaming, like maybe folks were telling other people about it? Oh, I just watched this thing on streaming. It's the Fall Guy. It's fantastic. Wait, that's still in movie theaters. Let's just go do that.
Maybe they wanted the big screen experience.
Yeah, and I wonder. I mean, of what I've watched of it, it doesn't look like a movie that has to be on the big screen, but
Oh, it's got so many great
For
action
people-
sequences.
maybe so. Well, maybe I haven't seen that part. But
Yeah, you
it's,
haven't. I don't
But
know how this
I
is
wonder
becoming
if-
another Goonies. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
No, I just haven't finished it. At least I started this one, so I'll get to it.
Well,
I'll get to it.
are you gonna
But I-
watch till the last
but I-
10 minutes? Or
Are there other people like me who like have like memberships to theaters that have X number of like I can go 3 times a week to see anything that I want. I'll go see something that's streaming in the theaters just because I have a free ticket, and that would be
Right.
credited toward the box office too.
John bragging about his account.
because he's an A-lister.
I could go anytime I want.
So, John, you could
Yes, ma'am.
go see the Fall Guy in theaters next time you go.
He's
Theoretically,
asking
I
if
could.
there are other
Yeah.
people that do this.
Yeah.
I'd
Maybe
like
it's
you
gonna
to
be
do
me.
That. I'd like you to do that. I'm rooting
Really?
for you to do that. Yes.
It is a good big screen one.
Yeah. It
Okay,
is.
yeah.
It really is.
Yeah. I'm not disagreeing. I just don't have all the information yet to make a judgment of my own.
Gotcha. I
And these-
encourage you to go get the big information.
And as we
Mm.
vamp here, thanks guys, I did get that in there.
Oh.
Steve is asking us, and I know Steve asked this once before, whether we like Roadhouse. Mm-hmm. And Steve, we did talk about. What? Go ahead.
I just point out that that's Will's way of going, okay, shut up, guys. I'm ready to talk again.
You know, I got to tell you, John, I thought I did that really politely. I like how you were keeping things going.
How come he doesn't get or
But now you're finished because I'm back.
No. This is part of the discussion. So along
Oh,
those
by
same
all means.
lines, along
By
those
all
same
means.
lines, I don't know, whatever. I was only half listening. But Steve did want to know if we love
We know.
if we like Roadhouse. Yes, we did. We did like Roadhouse a lot.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, I liked it better than the original.
Right.
Yes.
Will and Cat, maybe not so much. I did, though.
If
No,
for me, yeah, go ahead.
I did. I remember that. You and I were kind of on the same team.
Oh,
there.
were you? I thought you were in
Yeah.
between us. Yeah. Okay. You're on
It-
my
it-
side. You're on Team John. Yes, Team
Pretty
John.
much.
Cat sees the long arc of the sort of the
Yes,
the
yes.
story.
Yeah.
And I was
Right.
like,
The
if this is
Bouncerverse.
gonna- If
Yeah.
this is going to be the only one, for me, it was like missing elements from the first one that I really dug.
Yes.
But
Yes.
like, I think Kat's got a brilliant idea. Hopefully, it's true or works out that way. That they're setting us up for that, for him to be that, part of the Bouncerverse.
The Bouncerverse.
as you called it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no problem, Steve. That's no problem. That's what we're here for. Anybody else have any other questions or comments?
I'd like to know why, because if I had said what John had said, I would have gotten like or eat. The
Wait, what did
behind
John
the
say?
scenes.
Just play it to make Cat happy.
What
He
did
said
John
that's
say, though?
Will's way of telling us to shut up.
I'm trying to think. What would the difference be?
Is there a difference? Because it's him, not me. That's a difference.
No, that's not the difference. Hang on, there's a difference.
All right. You
I
contemplate
think
that.
like last week why I pointed that out was because I felt like I had a thing going, and then you're like, no, hey, stop the show, stop. I'm going to point out something small and meta. That's why. And Kat and John's thing was in response to me, like directly.
Right. Yeah.
Yours was a response to something that was like, you know, the B plot.
That sounds right.
My comment was about Will eradicating the B plot, getting back to the A plot.
And John was responding to me, like staying with me. You were responding to something that nobody else knew was going on.
That sounds about right.
So that's why.
It just means Kat has awareness beyond the what others of us have.
Oh, that sounds good. I like that.
Yes, Karen, we do all have access to 1980s Now account. Although during the lives we have someone behind the scenes usually responding to comments for us. A member of the team.
Yes.
An intern.
Yes.
All right, here we go. All right, hey, all right. No, hey, look, we had another news story. Great. We needed to fill for content anyway.
So,
all right.
I was ready.
That was a great chat. Hey, now, and I'm being sincere. I can't even be sincere with you people.
Oh, no, that's
like
very sincere.
It's like the boy who cried asshole. Now you're never going to believe when I'm giving you a compliment.
Yeah.
All right. Speaking of assholes, let's talk about this first news item in 1980s news.
Is it Caligula?
Yes.
Oh my god.
Yes.
Oh my god. I'm sitting here like, which one is it? Which one?
Yeah.
It has to be.
So one of the first Screen Crush, one of the most controversial films of all time, is headed back to theaters, and yeah, we're talking about Caligula. What you may not know is that the folks behind it were the men's magazine Penthouse. While Penthouse had already a history of helping fund some Hollywood films that are well known, including Chinatown, The Longest Yard, and The Day of the Locust, the owner of Penthouse, Bob Guccione, wanted to make something that was uniquely his own, and essentially a porn that had feature film production value. And so, and to do that, he thought he would tell the story of the rise and fall of the Roman Emperor Caligula. I don't know. I guess maybe what little he knew, or maybe I can even say that I know about Roman history, is sort of the debaucherous nature or some part of it, I guess. Maybe that's what
It's randiness, if you will.
Yeah, I suppose. Anyway, he employed author Gore Vidal, who I only know for his books. I didn't know he had written this originally, at least, to write the screenplay, and Tinto Brass was hired to direct it. If you don't know anything about Caligula, except it seems like one of the most, one of the most expensive porns of all time, it actually starred mainstream actors, folks who are even bigger now than they were at the time, including Malcolm McDowell, Helen Mirren, Peter O'Toole, and John Gielgud. Eventually, Bob Guccione gets dissatisfied with Vidal's script and Brass's editing because there's not enough banging in it.
Oh my.
And so he starts making some changes to some of the dialogue and some of the scenes. And then those, Vidal flees. He says, I don't want anything to do with this. Take my name off of it. The director either leaves or was fired as well. Guccione hires another person, Giancarlo Louis, to film. This is post-production. Film additional scenes with hardcore performances that they're going to then edit in, or that they then edit in into whatever they already had shot.
Okay.
Just remind me, this is not unlike Best Defense that we're going to talk about later. Minus the sex.
Oh.
Anyway.
Interesting.
In spite of the turmoil, or because of it, it actually does pretty well at the box office. And they have different versions of it, in particular, because some theaters wouldn't show the uncut form of the film. In fact, it still remains banned in some countries today. But despite its generally negative reception, it's gained, like many films from this era, right? This is a 1979 film. It gained a cult following, and either because of its, how bawdy it is, outright sex scenes, or because some people literally praised its historical content. I mean,
Okay.
Imagine getting this assigned for class. You know, hey guys, I got a great movie we're going to watch today. I've been talking about the Roman Empire. Anyway, it turns out though that even though we got a bunch of versions that have been floating around out there, you know, some with more or less sexual material, the original film that was, you know, being created by Vidal and Brass has never come to light until now.
Oh.
And actually, Malcolm McDowell apparently has an uncredited role in creating, was working with Vidal and them to create some of the dialogue, some of the story. Anyway, we now got the newly restored Ultimate Cut, which is coming to theaters later this summer. So there you go, Kat. Front row seats. And according to its distributor, the new version sticks, quote, closely to Vidal's original script, especially with the addition of a prologue that illustrates one of Vidal's missing scenes, created by noted graphic artist Dave McKean. And apparently, they're claiming that they have nearly 100 hours of original footage that was discovered for the project.
Whoa.
That's never been seen before, relying on alternate takes and different camera angles to reconstruct the storyline as it was intended.
Wow.
If it's more like the way they wanted and has less sex, I don't know that you're going to get people flocking to the theaters necessarily.
Except me. I'll be like, okay, bring on the history.
Yeah.
You know, they didn't explicitly say, no pun intended, they didn't explicitly say it's not going to have the sex in it. I have a feeling, though, the fact that it's this broad re-release, again, no pun intended, that perhaps it's going to have not the hardcore stuff, because there was a great amount of just casual nudity that I don't think, you know, short of like fuzzing it out, you're going to get rid of. It was like in frame, it was in scene with the main actors, background actors that were, you know, around the baths and whatever, and kind of the debauchery going on, that would then transition into those edited in true like pornography scenes. But I don't know what your relationship is to the film Caligula, but as a young man, I heard about it and sought it out because of the pornography. But then as I was, you know, fast forwarding to get to the pornography, I accidentally got interested in the film. And so, but then got distracted when the scene I was so searching for arrived. So I'm imagining to watch it in this way would be very interesting, because I wouldn't get distracted. I wouldn't, you know, but because it's a very 70s film. Even though it was 79, in the edge of 80, a lot of wide shots, a lot of lockdown shots, not a lot of movement. But with these extra scenes that they have, this extra footage, I can imagine they could edit it more dynamically as well.
Right, yeah.
It's one thing to like edit out the pornography. It's something else to have other shots that you can go in to make it feel more, you know, more lived in and more modern. That's the thing I'm hoping to see out of it.
Wow.
Yeah. So you seriously can do a compare and contrast.
You know, but for the sex, you know, I know nothing about it. I've never seen it except seen maybe some stills of those scenes.
Really? Okay.
I think I've seen Helen Mirren naked at least in that film. I know she's been naked in a bunch of movies, but that comes to mind. I don't know. Wow, John, it makes me curious about it for that aspect of the fact that it may actually be a good movie. That'd be
right. Yeah, and a
twist of
more
all.
with modern sensibilities. Maybe if you're re-editing it, you know, now in the 2020s, I can only imagine. I'm sure it's not done now. They've been doing it the last couple of years. I would expect you're about to release it.
Right.
But yeah, it's like there's a lot of notable stuff in there. There's like there's this great scene where they have this giant beheading machine out in this arena. They bury people up to their neck and then drive this big saw blade across the. It's crazy stuff that if you like horror movies and like suspense and tension, it's crazy stuff that's not. There is stuff in it like performances and the set pieces and things like that that I would like to just focus on and enjoy that as the film. So I'm really intrigued.
Wow. All right. This has everything. Oh my goodness.
It's that weird, you know, we've talked about this before. There's some strange, and not to say that this is an example of it, but this strange nexus between sex and horror that pervades 1980s films, maybe even started in the 70s.
Yeah.
But I don't really understand it. And the fact that I went from imagining Helen Mirren's naked breast to now thinking about people getting beheaded by some saw-like contraption, it makes me feel queasy. Is this horrible?
Can you imagine how I felt? Fast forwarding through that to get to the part I was looking for?
Oh, God, yeah. John's ready. He gets pants around his ankles.
Oh, no.
All right. Well, you know what? If they cut out more sex, then... and maybe they are, but then that doesn't explain why they've introduced this as the popcorn bucket.
Oh.
Yeah, this is the official Caligula popcorn bucket. So, get your tickets early. Get to the theater early if you want.
I'm sure it is.
Oh, man.
Oh, can't get it off the screen.
So the new movie coming out, it's all old scenes. It's not a remake. There's no new, well, it'll be new in the sense that it was discovered, but it's all the same old stuff, right?
It sounds like nothing shot new, all recovered stuff, barring the one or multiple scenes, I guess it said, that actually has been reimagined by this artist, which I can imagine like an animatic or something. That's going to feel jarring maybe, but we'll see what that
I don't
is.
think I get more sense if it's something more animated and complete than an animatic.
Okay, maybe so.
But I don't know. The new version of Caligula played this year at this year's Cannes Film Festival, reportedly to at least a few walkouts. Those folks that remain, those seem to generally give it a positive review. Caligula, the Ultimate Cut, will premiere in theaters on August 16th, and after that, it'll be available digitally.
Okay.
Brandon says, years ago, I went into an adult store, and they had a display of Caligula DVDs by the register. Never seen it, but it's obviously raunchy. I just think that's like, it was still a thing, that they would...
Yeah.
Anyway, Steve says, get your tickets early, Kat. Yeah, do that. And also,
I wonder why people were walking out, though. I'm still thinking about that because I mentioned it is very brutal and it is very raw, even if it doesn't have the pornographic content. So,
okay,
what are they walking out because of? Yeah. I mean, I mentioned there was beheadings. Maybe that's it.
It's got to be the violence because most folks know.
Maybe so. Yeah.
They associate it with this being sophisticated porn, but so they came for the porn and then they saw us getting their heads cut off from a different angle.
Yeah. New footage.
Steve also says John just walks around with this stuff in his head. You don't want to go in there in that head, Steve.
Oh no!
It's a mess in there.
Also, in this week in 1980s news, as reported by Vanity Fair, Robert Zemeckis' new movie, spans a century, but the camera never moves. That's what attracted my attention. The idea of that, Anyway, in 1989, the 9th issue of the experimental comics magazine Raw published a 6-page comic strip titled Here. Across 6 black and white pages, it simply pictured the corner of a room from a fixed viewpoint, but it's a little hard to explain. I'm going to show you an image of it.
Okay.
But it, in using this sort of structure of this single viewpoint, it overlays different frames showing that same view from different time periods. I'll show you the comic strip right here.
Yeah.
And by doing this, the artist, the writer, projected a parade of different moments across many years, going back prehistory and, projecting what humanity might be like. Let me see. I'll show you. This is from the original. I'm going to make it big here because I think it's kind of small for you to see. But you can see within each panel, there are smaller panels. So the idea is you're looking at the same exact view each time.
Okay.
But within these various inserts, they're showing one piece of the room or another. That's from in the box. He has the year displaying what it is. And some of these little stories, continue like you see in 1971 in that first panel. Someone's spilling a drink, and then a couple panels later, we see the sort of continuation of that story with the glass now broken on the floor. Anyway, this
interesting.
It's interesting. But ultimately, in 2014, the author of this, Richard McGuire, adapted his 36 panel story into a full-length graphic novel. And according to Chris Ware, who reviewed the book at the time for The Guardian, he said, quote, "The book has 304 pages of interconnected overlapping storylines, which are multivalent and varied, encompassing the lives of Native Americans and colonialists and moving from pre-human epochs to projected futures and species," end quote. Well, per Variety, on the set of Disney's Pinocchio, in which Tom Hanks played the puppet master Geppetto, director Robert Zemeckis began brainstorming with his frequent star. They were wondering if there was a possibility that they could create a film that was completely unique. You know, these two guys have worked together on a number of different technologically groundbreaking films, including Forrest Gump and the Polar Express. What world is left to conquer? You know?
Right. What haven't we done?
The one where we don't need a camera operator.
Just close your eyes. Yeah. You go to the theater, the screen's blank.
That's called radio. We've done that already.
We've invented radio. Anyway, during this conversation, Zemeckis tells Hanks, you know, there's this graphic novel I keep thinking about for years now. Can't get it out of my mind. It's called Here. Well, that night, Tom Hanks goes home and reads the book and agrees. So much like the 1989 comic strip I shared with you in the graphic novel that sort of expounds upon this, in Zemeckis' film, Here takes place from one fixed point of view. The camera never budges. It doesn't zoom. It never turns. What does move, and rather quickly, is time. More than a century of life in this one American living room plays out during the 104-minute story. Have you watched the trailer?
Yes.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So
What'd you think, Kat?
I want to watch it. I want to see this movie. I'm very intrigued. Very intrigued. It looks really cool.
I was I had to enable some crazy ad blocker to allow myself to see whatever site this was that had all the overlays and please subscribe. But finally, I got to the trailer, which I was able to see on YouTube, and just based on the trailer, I'm going to go out on a limb and say this is going to be one of those event movies for me in a way that Christopher Nolan's Memento was. It was just structured in such a way that I was simultaneously captivated by the performances and the structure of the film at the same time. And this, just from what I've seen in the trailer, not how much you'll see, but at the beginning, like they show dinosaurs walking around and then the asteroid hits, but they quickly get to people. And seeing them over the course of time, you know, you see them young and then later older. And I can only imagine the planning that goes into that, because I'm thinking like a production person, right? I'm like, well, how did they do? Someone had to dress the set for every period of time and modify, move things around and age these things. And what about what's across the street? Because you see this across the street, there's a building. Does it burn down? I'm fascinated. Like it could be a silent movie almost, like without stars in it. I'm fascinated by how they're going to accomplish it.
Yes.
I hope I'm not wrong, but right now it's like my most anticipated film. I think it's like November or something. It's too far away. It looks so fascinating. Yeah.
I feel like it could be, even though it sounds like it's about the everyday. It's about, hey, this is the lives of, you know, whatever families or creatures we're going to be seeing. But it could end up being kind of a roller coaster ride, I'm guessing. Just because of that, because
I'm expecting to cry, I'm expecting to laugh, you know, but the intellectual TV nerd in me is expecting to go, oh man, that was great how they pulled that off, kind of thing. That's what I'm thinking. I'm hoping I'm going to get out of it because it looks great.
Yeah.
I'm expecting to laugh and cry also. But one weird thing to me is that this is the popcorn bucket for it. I don't know what else they expect us to do during the film. Curious.
The center pixel is here.
No, I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah.
The film, which, as John pointed out, debuts in November on November 15th, not only reunites Tom Hanks with his Forrest Gump director, but also with his co-star Robin Wright. And the pair can be seen in the trailer at different times throughout their story together at different ages. Hanks plays a baby boomer named Richard, who at certain times is approximately his own age at 67, But other times, using digital effects to de-age him, he's as this article points out, he's a very young man, looking just like the two-time Oscar winner did on his TV show debut as the babyface star of 1980's Bosom Buddies. John, I honestly thought what your comment was going to be different. That the idea sounds great, but you're concerned about the execution. For folks who haven't seen the trailer, I'll share it with them here. Why isn't this working the way it normally works? I want to just say presented. Maybe see, the only choice is remove. I'll just click on it here. Anyway, for those who haven't seen the trailer, here is some images from it. Here you can see Hanks and co-star Robin Wright at a younger age. This might be the one they're talking about that approximates what he looked like in the 1980s.
Yeah.
And then we have another photo here of them. Looks like they're looking slightly older here.
Very 70s. Yep.
Yeah, looks like they're getting closer to the 1980s actuality.
There was a moment in the trailer where Robin Wright walks right up to what would be the camera, but just whatever this wall, whatever is in this place that you're standing, your vantage point. Like it's full facial. It's like just nothing but her face right in frame. And it still looked a little CGI-y, but looked pretty good. But in the comments of the YouTube video, I saw someone saying, as someone who watches and rewatches Robin Wright's old soap operas, I can tell you it's really, really good and looks like what she did at that age, apparently. So,
all right, cool.
Yeah, so obviously the challenge with trying to de-age folks, we've seen so many examples of this in recent films and TV shows, is to avoid the uncanny valley. That
right.
When a human when you see something that should appear like a human, but is unsettlingly unreal, and oftentimes you can't. John, are you raising the curtain? What are you doing?
I didn't do anything. It wasn't me, right?
But oftentimes you can't put your finger on like what bothers you about an image that you see. A lot of times, and folks who work on this technology, it boiled down at one point to the eyes. So they were using like real human, like they would save the human eyes of the force, and that seemed to get us pretty far. But I don't know. I think what happens with all of these all this technology is our human brain adapts.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I'm at a point now where it looks really good, but maybe it's just because I know it's not real. Maybe that's enough for me to be like, check out. But what beyond that though, because I think I could buy into the age thing, was there does seem, I'm wondering if it's just sort of a style he's chosen where the room itself and you're seeing the outside the building and those things and the folks layered in, there is this kind of, I don't know, aesthetic to it that makes it seem unreal, or I don't want to say fake, but, and maybe that's because he's leaning on the graphic novel aspect of it, where it came from this illustrations.
Like a hyper reality almost?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The colors are too
little oversaturated.
Yes,
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't explicitly notice that, but now that you mention it, I know exactly what you mean, and I agree.
And that could be fine. If it's a choice, it's fine. If it's because, they haven't figured out how to do the technology, then obviously it's...
Well, it makes sense to me. If that's the only view we're ever going to get, let's make everything just so and pop out and really capture whatever era we're in, I guess.
Yeah. Karen says Hanks looks like his son Colin in the first picture. Yeah, kind of does, doesn't it?
Of course. Yeah. Well, that's because Colin looks like his dad. What a twist.
Now, one thing, with regard to the special effects, it seems at least that Zemeckis gets it. And this is something, he gets this sort of thing that John and I pointed out before, that not only the visuals aren't the whole thing, but the voices are also important.
Oh, yes.
And he says, quote, "It only works because the performances are so good. Both Tom and Robin understood that instantly. Okay, we have to go back and channel what we were like 50 years ago or 40 years ago, and we have to bring that energy, that kind of posture, or even raise our voices higher, that kind of thing." End quote. Now, if you see the trailer, I swear, in that picture I just shared where they're supposed to be in their 20s or something, he's like, "Spend your whole life with me."
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Isn't it something like that? He's like, "I'm wondering if you'd like to spend the night." Right? You know what I'm talking about? I watched the trailer twice. That's why it sticks out. I'm like,
It's a touch, yes, on the older direction.
It's a little. It's a little Indiana Jonesy there, where we had young Indy with gruff old Harrison Ford voice and the 30-year-old Indy.
It seems like he gets
Too
it, but
husky.
maybe the execution, I don't know. Maybe he's doing a bit. I don't know. Anyway, if the Uncanny Valley turns you off, just go read the 1989 comic strip or the graphic novel that it spawned. Interestingly enough, while you may be familiar with Arthur Maguire's work from The New Yorker, because apparently he's contributed covers there for nearly 2 decades, I'm betting that listeners of this show most likely know Maguire from his iconic bass line heard here.
Oh,
Because it turns out that Richard Maguire was originally the bassist for Liquid Liquid.
wow.
Really?
Which wrote this song Cavern, from which the Grandmaster Melly Mel
Yes.
recreated with help from the Sugar Hill House Band to
Yes.
create the bed or the backing track for his hit White Lines.
White lines. Because, yes, I'm hearing it. I'm like, white lines. Wait.
And then it wasn't, but it is.
That was not the original. Oh my god.
They just knocked off the whole thing. The harm, the vocals, everything. But anyway, we've talked about that on our Sugar Hill True Crime episode. You folks should check that out. That's interesting.
Yeah.
If you maybe we talked about this during that episode. We certainly talked about the fallout. But initially, Liquid Liquid was actually pleased with how Melly Mel used their song. The vocalist Salvatore Principato commented that, quote, "We felt a combination of flattery, excitement, and bewilderment," end quote. But when the song Caverns rotation was supplanted by by White Lines, the rotation on the radio, the record label sued. All right.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
And I point that out.
Now there's something to sue.
Yeah.
It's flattering until, wait, where's our
Yeah.
money?
And I point that out because of its relation to our next story here. But I will remind you, it was actually Maguire on the True Crime that said that he believed that Sugar Hill Records had sent somebody over to intimidate them, a guy on the street with a machete.
Yes.
Maybe you remember that part.
Man. Yes.
Brandon says sometimes the simplest of ideas make for a great film. Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Miss So says I could see a hentai animated version of Caligula or a heavy metal version. Oh yeah, two good choices.
Yeah. It's very heavy metal. Yeah. Yeah. I'm speaking like the heavy metal animation, right? Not the
Yes.
particularly the music style, right?
I want a
It's a
song.
stage show, Caligula to the heavy metal soundtrack. No.
Speaking of
I agree.
music, also in 1980s news, as reported by The Verge, a new AI lawsuit values hit songs at $150,000 each. That's probably low.
It's probably low.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
A group of record labels, including the big three, Universal Music Group, Sony Music Entertainment, and Warner Records, are suing 2 of the top names in generative AI music. Alleging that the companies violated their copyright en masse. The 2 AI companies, I've never heard of either of these. I have experimented for fun. We all have, I think, right? Yep. Oh, maybe this was one that we used. The companies being sued are Suno and Udio.
Yeah. I think Suno might be the one that I have played with once.
Yeah, I think that's the one. Yeah, I think that's what.
Yeah, like you can only do like 3 songs and then you either pay or have to wait a week or something
Yes.
because
I created a rap song that was bragging about 1980s now, and you created a trucker song for you about you and Kat.
Oh my gosh.
That's right.
Right.
That was Suno, yeah.
Oh, wow.
For folks who don't know, just like other types of AI, generative AI, you type in a prompt, and it churns out a song, an original song. Both companies have enjoyed a level of success. Suno, in particular, is available for use in the Microsoft Copilot through a partnership with the tech giant. Yeah. So apparently, so many places you go now where that Copilot pops up, you can type in, "Give me a song about whatever," and it'll start singing you a song. I mean, it's just insane. Anyway, the case against Suno was filed in Boston, and the Udio case was filed in New York. The label say artists across genres and eras had their work used without consent. The lawsuit brought by the Recording Industry Association of America which represents the major players in the music industry, is seeking damages of up to $150,000 per work, along with other fees. Now that I think about it, Kat, we were saying maybe that's low, but I think they might mean the AI generated song, right? Not the song that was
Or like per generated one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
that
It was
must make
read
more
like
sense
the
to me.
ones they scraped to get the data were the ones, but yeah, could go either way. Yeah, it wasn't really super clear. There was the entire court document. I did not read it in its entirety, so I couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
It was only 800 pages.
We'll leave that to the lawyer.
Thinking about what I just mentioned with regard to Liquid's Cavern, how, look, they were flattered until now their song was being replaced by White Lines on the radio.
Yep.
And it makes sense because the concerned folks are being like, well, look, if I want to hear this certain kind of vibe, I love this bass and this music. And again, they knocked off so much of it.
Yeah.
I'm getting it from this one. I don't need the other one. And that's the concern here as well. So in that sense, I think the $150,000, $50,000 per infringement makes more sense, because each one of those is a potential threat to the song it's kind of like.
Okay. Yeah. That makes sense.
That could ramp up to a lot fast because anyone on the planet could log into Copilot and go there and ask for a song like this. And are you triggering 150 grand per time you do a version?
That's what I was wondering. Right. Like, if I
do me a
right
song about pork and beans in the style of Garth Brooks, and do you owe Garth Brooks now? What is every time you use it, it's that slippery slope.
And it's the companies that are created this platform that are being sued.
Yeah.
Not the individuals who are using it. So
certainly. But you're ranking up a bill for them.
You won't owe any money. I know. It's like, I want to bring this company down.
Right?
The music labels have just interns in there all day and night.
Right. Just do in the style of Metallica, because you know how litigious they are.
All right.
And another. Yeah.
Metallica's probably doing it themselves. Yeah, if that's the case. Right. Anyway, in the suit, the plaintiffs argue that, quote, the motive is brazenly commercial and threatens to displace the genuine human artistry that is at the heart of copyright protection. End quote.
Yes.
So we talked about this once before, that there was a court ruling not too long ago that decided that AI work can't be copywritten. That's for humans. Humans create things, invent things, etc. It's to reward them. We can't reward a robot or software. And even companies, that have used these things, they shouldn't be rewarded either. In an emailed statement, Mikey Schulman, CEO of Suna, says the company's technology is, quote, transformative, end quote. We've talked about the importance of something being transformative with regard to copyright. The less transformative it is, the more likely you're in trouble. It's also, he says, designed to, quote, generate completely new outputs, not to memorize and regurgitate pre-existing content, end quote. He also points out that Suno doesn't allow user prompts to be based on specific artists. And I do remember when I was doing my 80s rap song about 1980s now, I said in the style of, Run DMC, for example. And it came back and said, sorry, we can't do that. Don't mention anybody by name.
Ah.
So you had to do like in the style of 80s hip hop or something.
Yes.
Right? You had to say like a genre.
In the style of a hit song from 1986 in January. Yes. Now, so to give an example here, the RIAA included several examples of outputs generated by using these different platforms. And there's ways around it. And maybe you don't even have to be as specific as that to get a knockoff. One of the songs that they cited is generated by Suno is titled Deep Down in Louisiana, Close to New Orleans, which I think is supposed to be New Orleans. It replicates the lyrics and style of Johnny Be Good by Chuck Berry. And another song called Prancing Queen, generated using the prompt 70s Pop, contains lyrics to Dancing Queen by ABBA. And it sounds remarkably like the band. And I have a clip of it. Now, this one is not only sounds kind of like ABBA, it just lifts lyrics straight off of Dancing Queen.
Okay.
Night is young and the music's high with a bit of rock music. Everything is fine. You're in the mood for dancing when you get the chance. from the tambourine. Oh, yeah.
It even says Dancing Queen in it. I mean,
Yeah.
You recognize some of the lines, but it literally says Dancing Queen.
Yeah.
It says only 17.
Yeah.
Feel
Yeah.
the beat of the tambourine. I just danced to the song over the past weekend, so it's all in my head.
Feels like that was a very generic prompt, though, for the AI, because what I see the AI used for most is do a song in that style, but about this. And therefore, it would probably find its own lyrics based on some other bit of data that it had. But this one sounded like it was making a 70s pop song about dancing, almost like very generic sounding. And maybe that was with the least amount of data, ended up more of the original sample came through of what they scrubbed to create their data set. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because and I think, John, what you're hitting upon indirectly, certainly at least, is this idea that, look, the CEO of these Suno or these other companies can say, look, you can't mention a certain group, but it doesn't mean that behind the scenes they don't put meta tags and other relationships between key phrases and those groups. So to your point, John, 70s pop in that folder, to simplify it, may only be ABBA right now.
Right. I was in there. Right.
they get-
Exactly. Yeah.
So they get their interns to tag other things, with that similar. Yeah. Anyway, I don't know. You know how I feel about this. It just let artists create. You don't need robots to do that.
No.
I do know how you feel about it. And the two things that, I'm not going to defend AI, but the things that I talk about, the slippery slope of when I used those music services, it's because I did not have the ability to do that myself. I'm not a musician with a band and the ability to write chords and perform all these instruments. I was doing silly stuff or novelty stuff is what I was doing, which has its own value, which is fine.
Yeah.
But the other is I think about generative image AI, where I've heard them defend and said, look, it's going to, if you say, draw me a picture of an orange, it will, but it's because we had to show it thousands of pictures of oranges. It's not going to copy any one of those things exactly, but it's going to use all the information it knows about the texture and the shape and how the light hits it and, the density of whatever to create whatever you ask, draw me an orange, but it's, sitting on a pillow or whatever. Well, it uses all that to determine weight and all the things that you might do. So it's got to scrape all of those songs in order to know what a song is, or it can't make a song. So it's almost like you have to outlaw making songs with AI because you can't make songs with AI unless AI knows what songs sound like,
I'd be okay with that.
Maybe so. Maybe you're okay with that. Maybe you are. Yeah.
So maybe if it has all songs, that would be better. If it's just scraping little bits from a wider variety. Is that what you're saying?
Steal from everyone.
Yeah.
Don't be selective. Equal opportunity theft.
Steal a little bit from everyone, so it's not super close to any one of those. I guess it sounds like what you're saying.
But none of those solutions are going to placate Will. He's going to feel the same way about it. And I understand your sentiment. I do. Yeah. But on the other side, I'm the technologist who wants this cool stuff to happen. Can we find a legal way to do it? I'd rather not shut it down.
Yeah. Let me ask you this then.
Yeah.
Is there an area, and I think you're talking about, look, you want to be able to use it in areas that you don't otherwise have the time or aptitude to do these things. Yeah. I don't know how to write a song. I'll type it in Google and I can get a good song.
Right. I should hire an artist. I get you.
No. I wasn't going to say that. I was going to say, how do you feel about AI if we were to have AI to do something that you are good at doing? Because I think in particular, I don't like it because it's I like writing music. I like when people ask me to write music.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. Do you feel the same way about AI if it were to do, unboxing videos? You could just type in.
Or it's doing voiceover work or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Right.
So celebrating yesteryear could just do an AI for John Reddick and that's it. You're out of a job.
Well, there are competing platforms out there that just use AI. They do, but it feels so rote and staid and there's no emotion or cadence or whatever. Now, eventually maybe AI can do that because there's plenty of AI voicing out there. So I do get it. It's that, just like the uncanny valley in movies that you were talking about, I think we know what AI looks and sounds like and feels like and smells like eventually one day, I'm sure. we know it's generated. There's just, I don't know if it will ever be able to bridge the gap between that and genuine, flawed human performance, nuance that you get out of. I don't know that that's threatened, because I don't feel threatened by the voiceover AI, because it's not good enough to do exactly what I do. But for some people, that is good enough, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
And as you said, it's a matter of time. It's just a matter of time.
I would expect so. Yeah.
Yeah.
We just got to feed a few more John Reddicks into it. And then we'll be all set.
There's only one John Reddick.
Lucky for you.
Steve says that starts to add up, referring to the $150,000 per song.
Right.
Miss O says it definitely helps speed stuff up. Yeah, it does. But at what cost, Miss O? At what cost? Miss O, if you need a
Will's
song, reach
sanity.
out to me.
The cost.
That cost.
That's what I did.
Yes, my sanity.
Right. I didn't call any AI and say, make me a silly Christmas Pac-Man song.
Right.
Oh, that's right.
Steve says AI definitely has its place. It's here already. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
There you go. That's enough of that. All right. Hey, finally in this news, and then I'm going to tell you about Willard Hike and Gloria Katz in Best Defense.
Yeah, I got to hear about this.
As reported by Forbes, music lyrics have gotten worse since the 1980s. To which we say, no shit. We've been telling you this for years. What?
It seemed like a very subjective title of an article for Forbes.
Yes.
You know, by
Subjective.
whose standards?
Subjective, and yet they bring the receipts, as the kids say.
They
because
do. They did.
There is a new study, published earlier this year, in fact, in Scientific Reports. Now, only scientists would come up with a name for their publication that's literally what it is. Scientific Reports. Talk about needing an AI to generate something creative. You think a bunch of nerds in a laboratory would have done that. What can we call it?
Just like Portman, it's Cyports or something, you know, just jam some words together. Be creative. Nah. No, this should be just fine for us.
Welcome back to another episode of Podcast Show about 1980s pop culture. That's the name of the show. And what we're about is 1980s pop culture.
Well named and accurate, too.
Anyway, according to this study in Scientific Reports, songs have gotten more repetitive and angrier since the 1980s. And I say, just like me. I already told you! How many times do I have to tell you? That's me being repetitive.
All my slots are full already.
Yes. Get in line if you want to use one of my slots.
We all switch places when I ring the bell.
This just builds. Here's the bell for you, John.
Does that happen
in
in
this
movies?
new study just furthers research that's already been done that says songs have gotten shorter, simpler, and more negative over the years, and we've talked about some of these in the past. Anyway, I got to be honest with you. I've read some of the report. I read a couple of articles about it. I'm not even still sure what comes from the new study versus the old studies. Like even this Forbes thing. I'm just going to tell you what everything we learned here, and or not everything.
Yes.
Okay.
Distill it down for us.
And you'll understand why I'm confused, because I just told you a new study came out just a few months ago that said all this, and this is how the Forbes article goes. A separate 2021 study reviewed music from 1950. All right. Anyway, I think it all comes together. And honestly, looking at I was reading the actual study, and it does refer to other studies and try to synthesize things and compare and contrast. And now, add on. So I think that's what they're doing here. I got to tell you, along with stuff getting worse since the 1980s, journalism as well.
Yes.
Right? We read these articles every week, and it's like, this is terrible.
Some of it's pretty
Because you know
sloppy.
why? You can just have AI write an
That's
article.
probably, you're right.
Yes. Some of
And
it's
it goes out and it's aware of all these other surveys and all these other findings and research, and so it references them all to sound super smart.
Yeah. So, all right, let me see how I can tell. Maybe this is the easiest way to say it. The study compared 12,000 English language rap, pop, country, rock, and R&B songs from 1980 to 2020, and found songs have gotten more repetitive over the years, causing them to become less elaborate with simpler lyrics.
Okay.
Now, in these articles in the study, there's some different theories bandied about that none of them seems to, for me, explain it. I think it's just probably as a population, as we've talked about before, we are also getting simpler.
You sure?
I think is
Yes.
probably the more likely. Because one of the things they said is because people listen to the music in the background, they're not really paying attention. Well, the writer's not like, you know what? I could save a lot of time if I just use the same words over and over again.
Right.
Because someone's going to be doing this while they're working anyway. No one
Yeah.
does that. That's not how artists work or whatever.
Somebody tell George Harrison that when he wrote "Got My Mind Set on You."
Or My Sweet Lord.
Yep.
They found that songs that entered the Billboard charts became more simple as time progressed, and simpler songs were successful and charted higher. This may be due to an increase in new music being readily available to listeners, which causes popular songs to become more simple. We've talked about this specific study before, this idea that there's this cycle that if a simple song becomes popular, I make a simple song because that was popular, and then you
Right.
like that simple song, and then it becomes popular, and sort of this self-feeding thing.
Yeah, like a loop. Yeah.
So I don't think we learned anything there. But there's some other new things here that all genres of music increase their use of anger-related words. Yeah, the expressions of anger, sadness, disgust, and fear have increased in popular music, while joy has decreased, according to the researchers. However, because the researchers only looked at popular music, they believe their findings suggest listeners' preference for music with more negative connotations grew, rather than more artists producing negative music.
Okay. Interesting.
You know,
All I could think of when I read that part was the song Happy. Like, well, there's a joyful song.
Pharrell Williams, right? That's an anomalous data point.
Yes.
Everyone else is angry.
this reminds me of a few things. One that we've seen this study before that was done by I think a Swedish scientist who said that here's like the 10 happiest songs in the world, and most of them were from the 1980s. I tried to get him on the show; he never got back to me.
Yeah.
And I think I had this conversation in part with Jack Hughes from Wang Chung recently that music nowadays is just a bummer. And like, how do you account for that? Now they're saying that people prefer negative songs. Okay, that's fine, maybe, but why is that? And I wonder if just we're just all becoming more cynical and more.
Is it because we're unhappier and we relate to that music better?
Oh,
Right.
maybe.
I wonder if I'm not immune to that because I don't listen to anything that's post like,
Yeah.
I don't know, '02 maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm locked in on the 80s stuff and 90s stuff, largely, but yeah, it's certainly, it says angry, certainly more aggressive. There's a more aggressive standpoint. I mean, I'm thinking of certainly a lot of rock and hip hop that I have sampled and heard, but don't listen to any, regularly. It doesn't become my favorite, but
Sure.
yeah, like you said, Kat, you have "Happy" by Pharrell Williams. Not jokingly, that's an anomalous data point. There, name the second song about happiness, right? There's not another one.
Right.
If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands.
I think that's from the 20s.
Oh, it had to be a current song.
Yeah, maybe so.
Well, you know what other song popped into my head? But I had to think really hard about it. I love that Lizzo song. It's About Damn Time, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah. Mhm.
And I was thinking to myself, like, when I hear that and I sing along to it, it's uplifting, but it's doing it in a very aggressive way.
Right.
About damn time,
Yes,
so
right.
It's not.
It's aggressively celebratory, isn't it? It's like, it's like I'm getting mine is like what that song is.
Yeah, bitch. Like it's just
Yep.
like, oh my gosh. Yeah.
Cat, goodness.
So aggressively happy, yeah.
She's overdubbing Caligula for us.
Yeah. I'm gonna get that as a drop. I'm gonna use that. Another thing that they learned is that it seemed that folks care less about lyrics these days, which goes along with, I guess, these other things in a sense. That when they're looking at what folks research as far as what are the lyrics for, it tends to be for older songs, even going back to the 1950s, where people aren't looking up fewer newer songs, with the exception of for rap and R&B. which it seems, and that kind of makes sense to me because I don't know, rap is so lyrics intense. Maybe you'd want to know all those
Yes.
words to get rap, sing along. You know.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking because there's so much packed in there that you might want to like. What? Wait, what? What did I miss here? Yeah.
Yeah, and to your point about the simplicity, you hear a song these days, and right away I don't need to look up the lyrics because if I didn't understand it, I'll hear it again in a second. Like he'll say it over and over and over, and I go, "Oh, this is what he's saying." You know, it's not like one line that went by, and I'm like, "Wrapped up like a douche." That doesn't make any sense. Yeah.
Google, how do you wrap a douche? Here you go. 40 ways to make your own douche.
No, that's not it. Try again, Google.
Oh no! Don't put that into AI, okay?
And one other thing to note is that research also found that songs have gotten shorter over the years. The average length of songs from the Billboard 100 has decreased from 4 minutes in the 1990s to about 3 minutes in the 2020s. Now that they attribute likely to streaming services, which pay per stream, and so you want to get that song done, so you get another song going, get that money, get those couple of coins.
Yeah.
Do you think?
Yeah.
Do you think with the advent of short form content and sub 60-second material that you could take modern songs and find that they are really just a repetitive sequence of 60 seconds? That's a study I would like to do if I had more time, energy, and interest. So if it's repetitive and it's simplistic and it's going to be used in the background, that's every TikTok video song.
John, you nailed it,
So
man. That's it.
I'm wondering if not, is someone who's writing these songs thinking, well, I have a longer narrative here, but if I can get my entire point in about 55 seconds, this will get used in 8 million TikToks.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I wonder if that's not an actual strategy being used by some modern, because face it, Gen Z artists, millennial artists, they are aware of the world they're living in. They know how their music is going to be used on social media as backing tracks and stuff. So do you think they're actually, used to be they would find 60 seconds that worked and put it in, but I wonder if artists these days aren't actually formulating their songs so that they're easily sampled in those bites.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Absolutely.
Probably
services,
full of crap, but it's possible. It's interesting.
Let me tell you this. This is also what I learned from this article. Streaming services overtook digital downloads as the biggest source of revenue for the music industry for the first time since 2015. That number increased to from 34%. Whatever. Skipping ahead. Social platforms like TikTok may also be to blame, as users are accustomed to using and listening to short clips in videos. Billboard says. There you go, Johnny.
Go.
You could have written.
That was almost one of those things, as John was alluding to.
Yes.
That's a drinking game that I play when listening to the show, when Will says, and as John was just alluding to, I'm like, John did something right. Yes. Take a shot.
Yeah. Karen says, I was a teenager in the 90s and there were some good songs then. I agree. I stopped listening early 90s because, look, again, decades are contrivances, so 80s has an influence still today, obviously, but and before the 80s has an influence on the 80s.
That's the premise of this show.
Yes, to now. But right after the 80s ended, the music was still very 80s-ish. Miss So says, I don't mind the repetition, but I like modern techno and synth music. I do too. Yeah, that's true. Now that, a lot of that doesn't have lyrics if you're talking about straight up EDM. But you're right. Dance music, there's something about that, it's important to it, right? As far as the rhythm being repetitive.
Oh, yes,
And
definitely.
the sounds and being simple and all that.
That's a primal thing. It's just like you feel that in your bones when it's You don't need lyrics for that.
Oh,
Not
Steve.
I'm not going to turn this into a discussion about dancing, but I do have to say my favorite songs to dance to are the ones that have some variation in them, songs that I can anticipate, that I know what's coming, that I can sing along to, where Will's pointed out he loves when the music drops out. I love when the music drops out.
Yeah.
Or when on the bridges, that.
Yes.
There's something about that. Like I can't say that dance music proper is my favorite. Like I'll be like, okay, this is boring.
Because it's so repetitive.
Yeah.
You don't have the
Yes.
variation. Yeah,
Yeah,
I hear you.
yeah. I like a lot of variation. Mhm.
And Steve also adds, "Don't worry, be happy." Of course, Steve.
Oh,
Thanks for
yay.
that 1980s contribution. All right, hey, I haven't said it in a while, but I'm gonna say it now. That was 1980s news, and that's because we're not going to talk about news now. But I want to tell you about this because this isn't a news story that's happening now, but it is a contemporary in one aspect. In that, all year long, we're celebrating movies that are turning 40 because this is 40 years
So many good ones.
since the greatest year for film, 1984. So many good films, as John just alluded to. There you go.
Drink.
So, thanks to some research done by Marcus, our good pal Marcus, and some articles are in Variety and Mental Floss, I wanted to tell you this short story of how we ultimately arrive at the best defense, which is antithetical to what we just said about 1984 and movies. But I can't tell you that story without telling you the creators of the film. Willard Hike, who some folks I refer to as Bill Hike, and his wife, Gloria Katz. They met through friends in the 1960s. At the time, Katz was a film student at UCLA, while Hike was studying the same subject at USC, where he befriended future Star Wars architect George Lucas.
Oh.
And after Lucas's feature debut, the dystopian 1971 offering THX 1138, and it wasn't yet a surround sound system. It was a movie first. Then it had a spin-off. Then he made a spin-off of it. But after that film failed to connect with audiences, he tapped his old college pal to write his follow-up project, which was American Graffiti. In a 2017 interview, Katz said Lucas wanted Willard to write about cruising for American Graffiti, and I sort of came with the package. And thus, this relationship between this trio is born. Of course, American Graffiti receives critical acclaim, picking up 5 Oscar nominations, including a Best Original Screenplay nod for the writing duo. Their next collaboration with Lucas was more hush-hush. They were actually script doctors on the first Star Wars film, A New Hope.
Script doctors?
Yeah, have you not familiar with that phrase or concept?
No.
I have their debut album.
Yes, I love there. That is an AI spin doctors if I've ever heard it.
Isn't it right?
Yes. Give me a 90s pop song. So script doctor is a profession in Hollywood, Kat, and it's very common where someone will write a screenplay and someone else will look at it and say, hey, here's a joke, or I suggest you take this out, or they punch it up, they make it better. In theory, you may dismiss all their things, and oftentimes the studio will ask someone else, all right, great, you wrote the script, fantastic. Now I'll give it to so-and-so, and they'll, take a pass at it.
Okay.
Don't make it not suck.
Yes. And oftentimes it could pass through a dozen hands, people contributing different lines and plot points, etc.
The script nurse, the script anesthesiologist.
The script janitor. Yes, all.
The script proctologist.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
But never
He's the last guy.
Right, yes.
Nobody wants to touch it after that.
Yeah. It's a weird thing that you say that, because you remind me. There's a movie coming out called Script Proctologist, and this is the popcorn bucket for it. I'm not sure why, but
Yeah.
it's a very popular mold. But yeah, so and there's famous examples of this. You can find them on the internet where you didn't know a certain person. Joss Whedon, who I think's been Me Too'd at this point for being an awful person, but he famously contributed some jokes to Toy Story and Toy Story 3.
Wow.
He's punched up a bunch of things that you wouldn't have necessarily known he worked on. So yeah, and the way the Writers Guild rules work are, you don't get credit for that. Whoever contributed, who wrote the bulk of it, it has to be like over 50% or 75%. You're the folks who get credit. There's all these, union rules that dictate who gets actually.
You get paid for that.
Yeah.
You just don't get credit for that.
Yes.
Got it. Yep.
Yeah.
And I would guess you probably don't get any residuals for that either. That's like a Fiverr job that you do, I would expect, right? So if your name is not on the film,
Yeah. I
And
think
like,
that's
all right,
right,
you
yeah.
do it, do their best job on it. You're not getting anything in the back end. We're going to pay you this, 30 grand to do whatever you do kind of thing, right?
Yeah, I think
All
you're right.
right.
Yep. Yep.
One and
absolutely.
done. All right.
According to Katz, Lucas had reservations about the script for the original Star Wars film, so he asked Hike and Katz to, quote, polish it. But according to Katz, Lucas didn't want anyone to know they worked on the screenplay. And the pair mainly worked on punching up the dialogue. So, look, we know what Lucas's dialogue is like. We've seen the prequels. We
Yeah.
know there was no script doctors involved.
Oh,
You
no.
can know that. He famously defended those movies by saying, well, I was going for a certain style. You know what the style was? Shit. Shitty dialogue style. Like the old movies. No, I don't remember those movies, George. I don't remember the certain era of Hollywood, the golden era of Hollywood, where the films had shitty dialogue.
Those needed script intensive care triage.
Script EMT, yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Clear? No, sorry. Call it. Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
Dead at 4:33.
I like watching the how many people are watching drop down as I talk shitty about George Lucas.
Oh, no.
But what they did was they made it more humorous. They added a level of humanity to it. And one of the biggest changes they did was help shape the character of Princess Leia, who according to Katz, Lucas had her just as a damsel in distress. And they were able to convince Lucas to make her tougher instead of, as Katz said, quote, just a beautiful woman that schlepped along to be saved, end quote. Now, of course, Star Wars is a huge success, in part because of their uncredited work on the film.
Wow. Yeah.
Good for them.
Leaping a little ahead in time here, bringing us squarely into 1984, the year we're talking about. When it came time to produce a second Indiana Jones film, Lucas wrote a film treatment that included a haunted castle in Scotland. We talked about that some episodes ago. You should look that up.
Yes.
This is the story where Spielberg tells the story. When Lucas pitched me Indiana Jones, he had 3 stories. And then they were like, the studio's like, we want to make a second one. Lucas was like, I lied. I got nothing. I made that up. And so they were scrambling for stuff. Comes up with this Scottish castle idea, but Spielberg says, that's just like Poltergeist. I just did that. I'm not doing ghosts anymore.
Whenever I think about the Indiana Jones in a haunted house, all I can think about is like the Mr. Chicken Don Knotts film when he's in a haunted house and how goofy that is.
Yes, right.
Of course, it was a Scottish castle and it's more elevated, but all I can think is Don Knotts going, ooh, good gracious.
Yes.
But it's Indiana Jones.
Yeah, I have a hard time picturing it any more serious than that. Yeah. Anyway, so instead of doing a haunted castle, they did a demonic temple in India. Lucas first goes to screenwriter Lawrence Kasdan, who wrote Raiders of the Lost Ark, and Kasdan wants nothing to do with it. He says it is, quote, horrible. So once again, Lucas turns to his good buddies, Hike and Katz, and they write Temple of Doom. Now, if you don't know, it was released in May of 1984. It had the highest opening weekend of that year and was the year's highest grossing film. Third in North America behind Beverly Hills Cop and Ghostbusters. It was the 10th highest grossing film of all time during its release. Now, staying in 1984, because you know what our story is about. These folks who have this amazing track record.
Yeah.
Well, just 2 months later, another Hike and Katz film premiered. And although it starred 2 of the biggest stars of the 1980s, it was a complete flop.
Oops.
Best Defense, if you haven't seen it, it's about an inventor, Wiley Cooper, played by Dudley Moore, who attempts to perfect a new gyroscope, not for John's camera, which we did off air, I just remembered. Perfect a new new gyroscope.
Yes.
It's for a tank. And in the process, he becomes part of a love triangle, which includes Kate Capshaw, who just appeared in Temple of Doom a couple of months earlier.
Right.
And there's some other aspects of espionage involved as well. Anyway, it's written by Hike and Katz, just like they've written so many other films together at this point, a few other films. And it's directed by Hike. And although the film had the benefit of starring Moore, who had been in hit comedies by then, including 10 and Arthur, test audiences did not find it funny at all.
Oh, no.
It's because Dudley Moore is not funny. That's why I've decided.
Oh, what? Oh,
Unless he's playing a drunk, maybe. Maybe can you do it drunker? No?
Yeah.
You
I
know,
didn't even think
Arthur.
Arthur was funny. I think it's Dudley Moore. He's just
It's fine.
he's just a wet blanket for me.
Yeah. He did some sketch stuff years
I
years
think he
before.
thinks he's funny, and he looks like he thinks he's doing funny stuff, but I don't think it's funny.
that's
Rest in
so
peace.
Right.
funny.
I believe you believe it, but I don't believe it.
I wonder if I was brainwashed. Like, because when I think of Dudley Moore, I think funny. I think comedy.
Name a joke.
but
Name a quote. What have you laughed at?
I don't know.
He's not funny.
I'll have to go back and see why I
The
think
fact that
he's
you have to go
funny.
back tells me he's not funny.
Yeah, okay, there you go. So maybe you solved that
Yeah.
one. But Paramount now is like, well, what do we do? We got this terribly unfunny comedy on our hands. They've already invested $15 million into the production. So unlike today, where Time or Warner Brothers would write that off as a tax loss, that wasn't appealing to them. The most promising solution was to recruit someone who was certifiably box office gold and hilarious.
Oh,
Eddie Murphy.
Ah.
So Eddie Murphy had already emerged as a major movie
Yeah.
star for the studio. He had 48 Hours and 1983's Trading Places. On those films, he earned $200,000 and $300,000 respectively. But when he gets hired to do Beverly Hills Cop, they know how big this guy's going to be, so they pay him $4.5 million to do that. So it's exponential increase in bump in salary there. Paramount can't afford to do that. They're not even quite sure what they're going to be doing to incorporate him into this film that's already done and in the can.
Yeah.
how do you do that?
Yeah.
It's
Have you
and
seen
it's
Best
like,
Defense? It's super obvious how they did it.
Okay. No, I think it's on my list somewhere, but no, I've
No,
never.
take it off the list, Kat.
Take
You
it
don't,
Be serious.
you don't need to.
Don't waste your time with that movie.
Right. First of all, Dudley Moore, strike one.
Yeah. and I'll just a teaser here or a spoiler. Dudley Moore and Eddie Murphy didn't like the movie. They also agree it's terrible.
They didn't like it. But I'm so curious about how bad it is.
Well, Eddie liked it a little because he got money, but other than that,
Okay.
Yes, and speaking of that, look, they can't afford to offer him $4.5 million to be in a movie that's already done. So they do offer him $1 million to just shoot a few scenes. And while it's a lot less than what he would normally make, he only had to work for a couple of weeks. So he agrees
less work.
to doing it. Later acknowledging that he knew the script was horrible. And I have a clip of when he hosted Saturday Night Live that December after the film had come out.
Oh.
At first, I wasn't gonna do it because I read the script and I felt like I was an actor at first. But the money they gave me to do it, y'all would have did Best Defense too, okay? But I read the script at first and the script was terrible. I was like, what? How dare you give me a script like this? Oh, that much money? Let's go.
That's great.
But like you're pointing out though, Kat, because the movie's already made, his scenes have to be grafted onto the existing film. So what they do is, if you remember, I told you Dudley Moore's playing this guy who's inventing a gyroscope for a tank. So Eddie Murphy plays a character, an army lieutenant who's operating Dudley Moore's character's gyroscope in Kuwait 2 years later. So the film bounces back and forth between these two different timelines.
Oh.
With
And
the
it's not a
hope-
time travel movie.
no.
No.
You're seeing the two sort of parallel stories, and the hope is that whatever intrigue is happening with the gyroscope in Dudley Moore's timeline, which you don't know isn't resolved at these different points as you go back and forth, will create this sort of anticipation and excitement and interest in what happens in Murphy's timeline.
How does it affect him?
Was it a successful invention? Did the Russians steal it? All these things we won't know,
Wow.
So there's the link back to Caligula,
Yes,
Right.
exactly.
The
as Will was alluding to.
Yes. Thank you, John.
there's not enough slots.
Slancha.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
do remember.
It's a similar thing where it's like, okay, we have this finished movie And then the guy at Penthouse was like, well, but I wanted more, more banging. Like, well, let's just go shoot some banging and edit it in
Yes.
and make that like it was part of the movie in the first place.
Exactly, yeah.
And Eddie Murphy was best defense's banging.
I want to see they cut Eddie Murphy into Caligula. Those best defense scenes, like put that in there. That'd be interesting.
They should flip flop. Best defense will suddenly get very popular.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, right. Take whatever
What?
footage they cut
Caligula?
out of the. Yeah,
you ain't coozing nobody.
Oh, right. Yeah, exactly. So Paramount does this thing. They bill Murphy as a strategic guest star. So you see, starring Dudley Moore with strategic guest star. Now the movie's best defense. There's this military imagery on there. So strategic guest star seems to imply, well, a play on this idea of it being a film about the army. But no, the strategy is to lure you into the theater with Murphy on the poster.
Wow.
And the trailer for the film implies that both Moore and Murphy have significant roles.
Oh.
Paramount even promises that the film would, quote, bring together two of the screen's comic giants. But of the movie's 94-minute running time, Murphy only appears for about 15 minutes.
Well, they are together in the movie. I mean, they both appear in the
On
film.
screen,
but
yes, that's true.
Never simultaneously, as far
They
as I
never
know.
meet, right.
That's my question. Bringing them together, that means that they're in the same movie, but they're not
That's it.
in the same scene.
Yeah, there was a scene that was shot with them together actually meeting, but that was cut from the film. So they don't need to share screen.
Of course. Why wouldn't it be?
Yeah. That would have made it
The
great.
one
It would've been-
connective tissue.
That would have been a blockbuster. That fantastic movie.
That would have really.
That was the
would've-
missing element.
Yes, that would
So,
have made it.
as I mentioned, Best Defense opened just a couple months after Temple of Doom in July of 1984 to $8 million, which is enough to come in second behind Ghostbusters in Ghostbusters' 7th week of release. But
Ouch.
But once the word gets out that Murphy's basically got a cameo, the earnings drop by about 60% in just the second week.
Yeah.
And ultimately, it grosses under $20 million on a budget of about, 18.
Oh,
Theater
Really?
owners are pissed because part of them, what movies they decide they're going to show is getting pitched by, the organization that represents the studios, meeting with the theater owners. All right, Eddie Murphy and Dudley Moore, let's do it. But Eddie Murphy, but Murphy was aware of the backlash. Oh wait, I already did this. Blah 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 blah.
Well, let's say, stir crazy, it ain't.
Yeah.
Right? It's not let's bring together two great comedic actors and have them bounce off of each other.
right.
None of that happens. So it's a couple of single acts, and it's really like a one act and a half a act. So
Yeah, and at this point, it's just amazing to me, And it's just, we started talking about, and still in a way, certainly talking about Willard Hike, who directed this, and Gloria Katz, who co-wrote it with him, husband and wife duo. I don't know how you go from doing these amazing things to doing this. Like something else maybe happened. I don't know. Anyway, while Murphy joked on Saturday Night Live as I played to you about the film, he did also what he felt about the film was genuine. So it wasn't just a joke. He told Moviegoer magazine that Best Defense represented a situation where he had, quote, whored himself artistically, end quote.
Okay. Yes.
how do you really feel?
Kind
So
of like
ultimately-
Caligula.
Ooh. Artistic whoring. Yes, just like Caligula.
So there you go. That's Best Defense.
Well, I had a thought. I wonder if perhaps they should have
Yeah.
stayed away from comedy. Maybe they were much better at the action adventure, like with, Temple of Doom or doctoring up Star Wars. Maybe they're not funny.
Well, and what I thought is all of their successes had been tied to George Lucas.
Oh, yeah.
So
Oh.
when Lucas excitedly proposed another project to them, the trio reunited just a couple years later.
Oh,
Again, the husband and wife duo wrote the script and Hike directed. The film,
Okay.
1986's Howard the Duck.
oh,
I tell you, once you have the stink of Dudley Moore on you, it don't wash off.
Yeah. Now,
Wow.
Oh, ouch.
Larry Katz passed away a couple of years ago. By all accounts, they were they're sort of they're revered as this screenwriting couple. Not sure why the last few films they did together were not as successful. They did Radioland Murders with Lucas after that.
Okay.
And that was even less successful. It cost like $10 million to make, and it made like $1 million. But anyway, I think it's interesting that this duo could have among the most successful movies of 1984 and the least successful film.
Yeah, major motion
amazing.
pictures. I'm sure there were worse films out there, but not like major studio films.
Yes.
And not done by people that had these kind of credentials, certainly.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's quite a feat that they accomplished there.
Karen says, I listened to a podcast called Remember That Show, and there's a segment on there where they doctor scripts of short-lived shows to possibly make them more successful.
There's
Oh,
the
really?
doctor. All right.
Yeah, that sounds funny.
Yeah.
Steve says that was a great Don Knotts face, John.
Yes. That was your eyeballs. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you got to bug them out.
Brandon says, to take a page out of John's book, this film must have been a dumpster fire. Man, Brandon's not letting that go, John. He's not going to let you forget about that.
That's okay. Yeah.
I'm with Brandon.
Everyone's entitled to their varied opinions.
And Nick says, is Radioland Murders worth the watch? I feel like I watched it, Nick. I couldn't tell you definitively that I did. I could tell you that, in reading to tell you about Hiking Cats, it was not well received. Got bad reviews pretty much all around. Again, did terribly at the box office. So if that tells you anything, not that that's obviously that's not always the be all and end all, but right.
If it had that kind of quality, by this time it would have gained a cult following, as everything does after it fails in the box office.
Right.
So.
That is a good point.
Like a lot of 1980s movies in particular. There's probably a study we could do about that. How many movies were flops in the 80s that became, successes given a time?
Yes.
Get our research assistant on the horn.
Yes.
Let's go.
Woo.
Wait, I got to do my mantra again. The universe provides all we need for the podcast, including research on, what was it that we were talking about? Oh, flops in the 80s becoming success later, or whatever. Universe,
It'll be in your inbox
universe.
shortly. Yeah.
I don't have to. I don't have to tell you what it is.
I really wish
Oh,
you
and look,
looked
I
at
got
that
it.
one.
I got it.
Hey,
This
there
the
it is.
research we
Perfect. If only you had a slot available.
Yeah, I don't have any place to plug it in.
No.
Oh, wait, or do I? And there you go. That was our
Cerveza
show. Okay.
Cristal.
Now we got to end on that when you come full circle. All right. Hey, that was the show. Bye.
Our show is brought to you thanks in part to our early adopters, Karen Flieger and Rick Parker.
Hang on. I'm drinking water behind the scenes here.
What are you drinking?
There we go.
Scream.
There we go.
And thank you especially to our Secret of Our Success Level Patreon supporters, John Henderson, Brandon Greer, Marcus Taylor, Tony Great, Nick Guillory, and Matt Marino.
Yay. And I want to give a special Heidi Ho special thank you to Steve McLeod for joining us as being our newest patron.
Steve, thank you.
Joins
New
us today on our
fish.
Facebook.
Fresh meat.
Our YouTube live. And also, welcome back to the fold, Brad Boban,
Yay, Brad.
our old-time friend and supporter and all-around good guy.
Thank you,
Thank
both
you,
of
Steve,
guys.
so much. Thank you, Brad, for coming back. Thank you to everybody. I mean, you all are fantastic. Again, like I said, your money pays the bills. Your support is like, I don't know, something else. What are words? Kat, you say what it is.
Oh no. I'm speechless. Your support is a boost of what could I call it? Oh no. I don't know what I got.
Wind beneath our wings. Say the wind beneath our wings.
Oh, but that would be
Go.
I
Go,
feel
go,
like
go,
it'd
do
be
it.
stealing
No. It's not AI. It's transformative because it's about patronage.
It's from the 80s. Yes, you are the wind beneath our wings.
Hey, we love you guys. Thank you. Yes. What?
You're the bubbles in our champagne.
Ooh.
The groove in my dance.
Mm-hmm.
You're the porn in our Caligula.
Yes. You're the popcorn in my
Popcorn
bucket.
in our bucket. Exactly what.
I know. Okay, I beat you to it, right? Yeah,
Never miss an opportunity.
get rid of that thing. All right, hey, we will talk to you. We will butter you up next time
Oh,
on 1980s Now.
Until next time.
prancing queen.
Yeah, hey, seriously, thank you so much, Steve, for joining us. Thank Brandon, Nick, Karen, all of our supporters that are on here, all of our patrons that are here with us tonight. All those who aren't. Kyle's here. Hey, Kyle.
And Kyle says the pop rocks in my soda.
Oh, there we go.
You're going to kill yourself, Kyle. Don't do it. And
Marty
everybody who
says, "Don't do it."
yeah, and everybody who supports us just by hanging out, like Miss So.
Yeah.
And who else did I miss? And Doris.
Thank you, Miss So.
I know I'm going to miss somebody. I'm sorry, guys, if I missed
Yeah,
you.
Doris was here, and there was somebody else here for a little bit.
Yeah,
Steve, you
Steve can't see all the chat because some's from Facebook and some's from
Right.
YouTube. Yeah,
Yeah, I know.
Yep,
So you
yep.
can't- Yeah.
We can see everything right here, but yeah.
That's right. That's because Cat's special.
Oh no. Or eat.
She's dunking on herself.
I don't know what's going on. I wasn't-
Might as well.
All right. Hey, everybody, you have a good night. Seriously, love you all.
Yes.
We will chat
Yeah,
again
thanks for being here.
soon.
Thank you for joining us.
Hoot nanny.
Have, best wishes to all y'all.
Al was